start that recording now. Okay, well, welcome again, everybody. It's good we've worked out how to use Zoom and how to use the chat. Let's try answering another question in the chat. Again, I'd like you not to press enter until I say go. Okay, so the question is, what do you associate with time banking? So you might not know anything about time banking. You can just put a question mark, that's fine. If you are more familiar with time banking, what do you associate with it? Maybe a keyword or a phrase or a sentence, not a big essay, okay? So about 30 seconds to type something that you associate with time banking. What does it mean for you? What do you think about when you think about time banking? And don't press enter yet.
Will I get sent to my room? Oh.
No. We'll keep you there, Wes.
How'd you go with Edgar?
He was saying that he wanted to join, but he didn't know how to reach us. So I said that he's already registered and that he can click on the link in that mail, and I shared the registration link again if he couldn't find his email. So hopefully it's possible for him to join.
I've told Wes to turn around and put his nose in the corner for 2 seconds.
Why? Oh, because he pressed enter before he was allowed.
He said he asked if he has to go to his room.
Okay. Kotoma, everybody, please feel free to press enter. Great. Okay. So Wes is brand new to time banking, so you'll have lots of questions, hopefully, Wes, and you can feel free to fire them away at us today. Any and every question is welcome. And we've got connecting and belonging, meeting new people, sharing, equality, belonging. Okay, so there's some key words people associate with time banking. Fantastic. So what I'd love for you to do is that if you have questions throughout this presentation, please type them in the chat. And then, but don't press enter until the end, and then or until I've finished my little spiel, and Mari and Alistair have had a chance to say a few things as well. Then we'll open it up for some questions, okay? But if you've got questions and you think about them along the way, please feel free to type them up and just hold off pressing enter if you can remember until later, because sometimes it's a bit distracting if there's all these questions coming up during it. So I'll try and, yeah, if we can do that, that's great. But we certainly would love to hear your questions.
Sorry, Kate, Tony is giving her apologies. She's running a bit late, but she will join as soon as she can.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thanks. Excellent. Okay, so for a start, I guess for me, time banking is about, it's like a community building tool. And so it's about some of those things people have mentioned, connecting and meeting new people. Our time bank, Mid-Canterbury Time Bank, has the slogan, connect, contribute and belong. And that really kind of sums up what we're about. So at its sort of most simplest, time banking is about exchanging time. So it's like another currency, complementary to the monetary currency we have. So with the money, you can earn in some ways, you can spend in others. And the time bank is similar but different. It's a currency which has more benefits, I think, than the monetary currency, and can be used as a way of and helping the skill exchanging to take place with more benefits than if we were using money. So basically, if I want someone to help me in my garden, which I often do, I will put a request on the Time Bank membership site, and other members will see that request and they might say, oh, yes, I'll help Kate with her garden on Saturday. And they write to me and organise it. They come along, we garden together often, or maybe they do a job for me. And then I give them time credits. So 1 hour of help is worth 1 time credit. So Yvonne has helped me in my garden, and so if she spent an hour and a half helping, she would get 1.5 time credits from me. And then Yvonne can use those credits to get help from another member or from me, but doesn't have to be. Usually it's, from someone else for something that she might need or want.
And
Okay.
Yvonne is a machine, so an hour and a half of her work is worth like 4 of mine.
Yeah, she is a machine in the garden. That is true. She's very efficient. You just say, "Oh, would you mind looking over there?" Next minute, it's all tidied up. That's great. So that's the exchanging. It's done on a system of that uses time credits. But I guess that there are advantages to being able to exchange without money. For some people, it enables them to do things they might not otherwise afford. Mari, you have an example with your son, something that you might not have done otherwise?
Oh, yeah. I was homeschooling all my kids, and a couple of years ago, I asked my 2 youngest if they wanted to take up a musical instrument, because neither of them really showed a lot of passion for anything in particular. So it was just a suggestion. He decided, once he went and did a bit of research on it, that it was cheaper for him to go and buy himself an electronic keyboard than hire one. And then if it didn't work out, sell it on rather than the cost of hiring. And then in Ashburton, we just couldn't find anyone outside the school system who would teach him. So I put a request up on TimeBank, and Kate happened to have a friend down from another TimeBank who played the piano, and he came and spent probably a couple of times about an hour and a half just getting Caleb started on the basics so that he understood what the keys were, just all those technical details, and that got him started. Actually came away from that having taught him a song, which was really good. And then it meant that he knew that he liked it enough to carry on. And later on, probably a couple of months later, we had a new lady join who had moved over from the States, and she had played piano since she was a child. So she taught him for a whole year until she was about to have her own first child. So she used to come around for about 3/4 of an hour every week. She would sit him homework, and it was just really good to have someone who outside of the family, because of course with homeschooling a lot of the time they just get me, and so it was good for him to interact and learn from somebody different than me, who really knew their stuff. And they got on like a house on fire. They're both quite reserved people, so it really kind of worked well. Yeah, and I mean, he hasn't touched his keyboard for a little while, but then it's always there for him to pick up, and he loves watching other people's music on screen. Like there's things come up on, he can go and look for them where you can hear the music being played, and you'll see a virtual keyboard and see what's being played, and he memorizes that. So it is an interest that's sitting in there bubbling away for when he's ready to have the energy again to apply to it. So that was really good. And it was time credits. And I don't know if any of you know, but music lessons, I mean, I learnt the guitar when I was a teenager, and I'm over half a century now. And back then it was like $20 odd an hour. So to get it for time credits instead of paying for it is quite a big thing over a whole year. That's a lot of money that I didn't have to spend. And we've made a connection, as well. So that's
Thanks, Mari.
Yeah.
Great. So that's just an example. So for some people, part of the benefit of being in a time bank is being able to get help or piano lessons or whatever it may be without needing to pay money. And then the bonus of that, as Mari mentioned at the end there, is that you also, through time banking, are often more likely to establish some kind of connection or friendship with the person that's helping you out. So that's a bonus that you don't usually get when you're, when you're using money as the currency. Now, as I said, our motto is connect, contribute, and belong. So it's all about connecting. Our trust that runs the time bank is called Connecting Mid-Canterbury. And so sometimes people say, oh, but what if someone just asks all the time and gets, lots of help and doesn't do anything, back, and how does that work? And we say, fine, no problem. If they have lots of needs and they want to ask for help, great. Because when you ask for help, you're enabling someone else to help you, which they can earn time credits, which is good. But even more importantly, they feel valued because they're helping, they're contributing in some way to their community. So they feel good about doing that. And in the case of people who may be elderly or have disabilities or for some other reason not able to work in the normal sense of working for a monetary income, this can provide a wonderful sense of fulfillment because they're doing something and it's
They're
really
needed.
helping others. They're needed. Yes, they're needed. They have skills. And one of our 80-something-year-old members, she said that she didn't realize how many skills that she had until she joined the Time Bank. And then people were asking for baking and asking for mending and asking for counselling and all these things which she found that she was quite able to do. And that was really encouraging for her. So yeah, it is about that connection. And even if you're asking for help a lot, you're enabling connection. And that's what it's all about. We don't care if you go below zero. We don't charge interest. We are not a normal bank. We are a bank about connection. So you can go below zero and we don't mind. One of the key values of time banking is reciprocity, which means like a two-way street. So even if you are taking a lot more than you're giving, we still are hoping that you can give in some way. Another value of time banking is that we are all assets. So everybody's got something to give. So even those people who may need a lot of support will be able to contribute in some way.
And in actual fact, a lot of people join thinking that they can't offer anything. And then when they get there, they realize, oh, hang on a second, there are people around that can't do this. This is actually something that's valued by other people because we're our own worst critics, and we don't, like I say in the starter sessions, you don't know how valuable your skill is until you find someone who can't do it. You know, and then all of a sudden, there's all these people who need your skills, and they love it. Like we've got a lady who makes cheesecakes, and she's just, oh, that's all I can do. I can make cheesecakes. People love her cheesecakes, and she gets orders all over the place. Another lady does foot massages, and she has to take the offer down sometimes because she gets inundated with requests for her foot massages. She gets so busy doing them, and she loves doing them. She loves that time, that connection with people and helping people and knowing how good it makes them feel. And it's massaging your feet. In the real world, at her age, there's no way someone will pay her to do that, and yet she is so good at it and loves it so much, gets so much out of it herself just doing it, let alone the fact that she is needed by that person and making them feel better. That's another one I've taken up for one of my kids too.
Great. So I'd like to just pause for a minute and welcome our newest person to the Zoom. Welcome, Edgar.
Hello. It's so thrilling to make contact. What a wonderful treat for me. I can't believe that I'm actually making contact. It's such a joyous event, and you all are just so wonderful. And just to be at all present is a gift that you've given me that I shall always treasure. As I treasured Margaret's presence, I feel her presence here today. Yeah.
Thank you, Edgar. Now, just to let you know, we have, my name is Kate, and I am one of the coordinators of the Mid-Canterbury Time Bank, along with Mari, who's also on the call. And we have Alistair, the Irish Kiwi. He's also hosting this Q&A, and we're going to hear from him shortly. We have Wes, who's brand new to, doesn't know much about time banking. He's here to learn. And we have Yvonne, who's one of our Time Bank members. And we have someone you're probably familiar with, Eric from Vermont, who informs me it's 3 a.m. And I'm wondering what time it is there for you.
It's 3:22, yes.
Oh,
Oh my goodness.
But I set the alarm so that I could join you because I did not want to miss this. It just means so much to me, and New Zealand is so beautiful, and I really think it ought to be the global capital of the world for Time Bank.
well,
So
that's
lovely to meet you, Edgar.
very
Good to
kind.
meet
Now,
you.
just for those who aren't familiar, we are very honoured to have Edgar Khan calling in, because Edgar Khan is the founder of time banking. He's the guy who invented time banking in the world. Back in the 1980s. He's the one that came up with the concept, and is very much involved in the TimeBanks USA organization, and is head of that. And so it's just mind-blowing that you wanted to join us here in Ashburton for our Zoom call at 3 in the morning, and same with Eric getting up at that time to join us, and we're very honoured.
Well,
And Edgar's mentioned Margaret. For those not familiar, Margaret Jeffries was the founder of time banking in New Zealand. She brought the concept to this country and started the Littleton Time Bank. And we are very saddened that she passed away in January. And yeah, she's deeply missed by many people, and especially in Littleton, but in the time bank community in New Zealand. So thank you for paying tribute to her, Edgar.
we have a need to celebrate values that money and market do not value: caring and decency, and something you may have heard about called justice, and the work that, I don't know whether you're still doing it, to reach out to the Maori and honor their values, but the healing that was going on when I was there, and the respect, the historic respect, was just magnificent, because we have our own traditions, in this country of genocide and of what we did to the native peoples. And I think that we still have a long way to go. And yesterday, I was in contact with the Navajo Nation in the Southwest for a healing ceremony with them. But you all are just very special. You have a very special place, both in my heart and in the whole global network, because more than ever, we are trampled by our pursuit of money and by our pursuit of things that money makes scarce, but money does not value the universals that enabled our species to survive and evolve. And New Zealand is above all a symbol of how, as a species, we survived, because we took care of each other's children when the mate was killed and there was nobody to take care of them. And so caring for each other is really wired into us, and it's really the reason we're here, because that goes back to days before any of us will ever remember, but when we began as a species to evolve, and hopefully we'll live up to the possibilities that creates. I won't go into politics, but we're hoping this nation will come to some sanity shortly. They'll have a chance anyway. But I just wanted to be here and to listen and to hear about any exchanges that have taken place. And we're moving beyond exchanges. We're moving to where we're really talking about whole system design, where from birth on, it's the connectivity that defines, that enables an infant's brain to develop. We're all born. I'm going on and on, so I ought to shut up and listen.
I think it's really important that we thank you, Edgar, because otherwise we wouldn't be here. And you know, I'd been quite lost in Ashburton. I'd have been quite lost in Ashburton if I hadn't found these group of interesting people.
Alistair, would you like to share a little about yourself, Alistair, and tell us what benefits you've experienced by being involved with the Time Bank?
Yeah, I don't know how long I have, but possibly
maybe in 4 or 5 minutes.
No, I knew I couldn't put it in 4 or 5 minutes. That's why I said it. But yeah, so I moved to New Zealand in 2001, and I had a very successful farming career. And in 2015, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. Now, it wasn't cancerous, but it was very large, and it ended my career overnight. and I had a family, and all the things that you get in a time bank, I had in my farming community. And I suppose I'm a very passionate person, so I was very passionate about what I do, about my animals, about feeding people, etc., and about my staff and training them. So I lost that within over a few days as such. And I moved to Ashburton. It took me probably 12 months, maybe a bit more, to come back around to the fact that I should probably stick around on this planet. And when I started volunteering for a group called Presbyterian Support, I started learning what need there was in these towns. And I'd lived in the country all my life and been very self-sufficient, as farmers are. So we don't always think about, we suppose we've got opportunities to make our own, what we do, we just do it. And that's how we grow. Whereas I think a lot of people don't have that opportunity. And so therefore they fall over, I suppose. And so what I went to a meeting, met Kate. I'd been looking to start something like time banking myself, and I'd met with a couple of other groups in town, mainly around elder care. And so as soon as I heard time banking, I was like, right, that's it. Where can I sign up? That's exactly what I've been looking to do. And yeah, I've been in it ever since. I was able to help get it up and running. Then I am not always well. The tumor robbed me of a lot of my hormones. It was my pituitary gland, or basically all my hormone production. So I suffer a lot from lack of energy. But over my 25 years of my career, I learned a lot of skills that I found I could put into helping people and helping the time bank. And I suppose put up there on the time bank site and say, well, these are the things I can offer. And again, at the start, I was thinking, well, I've been a farmer and that's it. I can't really offer much else, but there are so many skills in all industries that we don't realize we're just learning as we go along. So yeah, that's 2-3 years ago now. And I've just gone from strength to strength. I possibly got a bit busy there for a while doing physical stuff a bit too much. And I really got quite drained. And so I decided when I came back from a trip to Ireland last year that I'd like to go a bit more on the helping organize things. So I joined the board, and I decided I could affect more change in that area while still doing a little bit of stuff in trading and things. And I've had an immense amount of help, especially while I was still getting on my feet health-wise, and while I was still getting my hormones back online. I take hormone replacement therapy, but it took 2 years of tweaking to get it to a baseline, I suppose. So I've had gardening help. I've had someone make bread for me every week. In fact, that's Tony over there and her husband, Tony McKee. And Mari has done all sorts, helped me with gardening. She's just mended my shirts, mended lots of things. I've had, one of the biggest things actually for me is I've had, I think a number of people, but certainly one person, bring me to my hospital appointments an hour away in Christchurch. And when my wife's at work and I'm just not fit to go, I'm not fit to drive. If I did manage to get driving up back there, I would never get home again because I wouldn't have the energy to drive myself home, because it takes so much out of me in the whatever, So, if you put all that stuff aside, the help stuff, the sense of community, the sense of belonging, and the sense of connection is just, it's replaced what I had before in my previous life. And when I have no workmates now, I don't go to work dues anymore. All the things that people don't think of when they've got a job, a family, etc., etc. I didn't know anybody in Ashburton, and now I have a family here, really, and it's given me a whole new purpose. I'll wait 5 minutes.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you, Alistair. One of the things that I love the most about being involved in the Time Bank is being able to meet all the wonderful people that join and develop some neat friendships. And Alistair is one person I'm particularly grateful to have met, and hearing his story and seeing how the Time Bank has improved his life and been made such a difference. It gives me inspiration to keep going and want to expand and see more people understand the concept of time banking and yeah, hence we decided to do a Q&A. Actually, we had several people who filled out something and said, yeah, we want to come to a Q&A, and none of those people have actually joined the call. So that's fine. But that sometimes happens, you know, people get busy or the date doesn't suit or whatever. But I'm really thrilled to have those of you who are on the call with us tonight, and especially Wes, who is new to the time banking concept. Wes, you were asking a question before, which we can take now if you like.
Yeah, I'm Alice. Is it Alice there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Alice Kiwi. Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from, mate. I'm 58 and coming up 59. I don't look it, I know, and that's all good. But I, at 47, had my life ripped out from underneath me work-wise, riddled with both forms of arthritis and emphysema. And 2 years ago, I was told that my neck is crumbling down my spine. So a lot of physical work is out for me. And I'm now losing the usage of my hands as such, or long-term usage. I can work on my laptop and write and do things like that. And I like building stuff, you know, and I like hobby sort of stuff, but I can only do what my hands can allow. But I've been writing a book, and it's a very sensitive book, but I'm having trouble getting the paragraphs and the sentences where I need them into the chapters that I need them in, and I'm hoping that somebody out there can help me. It's extremely sensitive. It's about my life growing up, which wasn't good by no stretch of the imagination, and I decided to write a book so that not so much to get it out there, but I want people who read it to pick something up out of it and grow with it, if you know what I mean, to become stronger. I'm particularly aiming at people that play, well, not play, but that's the wrong choice of word, but seem to want to stay in victim mode. My aim is to teach them how to become a survivor, like me, a survivor. And that's my whole aim around the book, but I'm needing help with it. So, yeah.
Thank you, Wes. And that's the kind of thing that if you did join the Time Bank, that's something that you could request. And I do know that we have several people that offer things like proofreading skills. Someone in the Time Bank is currently doing a course about putting a book together, so they may be able to give you some tips. And so yeah, that's definitely something you can ask and see what happens. There's no guarantees when you create requests or offers that someone's going to respond, but you can put it out there, and you might be surprised, who does respond.
Also, I asked, sorry, Kate. Also, I asked, how can Shazzy and I join? How do we go about that?
Okay, so let me just share my screen. Yes, I'll share my screen. What's that?
It's rolling without me.
Okay, so if you can see my screen right now, we have our website. This is like the outward-facing website that just tells you a little bit about time banking. It's actually a little bit outdated. We need to update our website. But there is, right at the top, so the website is mctimebank.nz, and MC for Mid-Canterbury, okay? mctimebank.nz.
It's going to write it down, Kate.
Okay, well, I'll put it in the chat so you can copy it later too. So if you just click on the button join, and then this is our application form. So you'll just need to go through that when you have some time. We do ask a few questions and ask you to give us some referee names and phone numbers. They don't need to be people that are in Ashburton. If you've moved from somewhere else, you might have an old neighbour or a friend, as long as they're not your wife, for example, as long as they're not an immediate family member, someone else who can vouch for you. And we ask a few questions, and you need to answer those in order to join. Okay, we have an agreement. It's a little bit of a long, sign up form, but that's because we do take people's safety seriously, and because often exchanges do happen where people are, like you say, dealing with sensitive material or in people's helping someone in their own home, we want to make sure that we keep our members safe. So we do have a little bit of a process to sign up. Once you're in though, it's great. So this is our members website. This is a different site, so that's where there's also a link from the main page, which is members site. Okay, now I've just logged in as my husband because my view is a little bit different as a coordinator. So anyway, this is our site, and you can see at the top we've got offers and requests. Okay, so this is how it works. Once you are a member, you have access to the site. Okay, once you've filled out your form, then what happens is Mari, she will make contact with you and let you know when we have our next starter session, which is like an orientation process, and she goes through how you use this website, okay, how all of this works, and how you make a request, how you create your profile. Basically, if we click on offers, we can just have a wee look. I don't think these people will mind that we see their offers. So somebody's offering some plants. Oh, someone else is offering muffins. So her time would be given in time credits, but any money that would that she incurred in making those cost of ingredients, we would pay for in cash. Someone is helping to update profiles if people are unsure about how to do that. Walking dogs, computer help. Then we could go to requests. This is just to give you a taste of the kind of thing people do. This lady's just come out of hospital, so she needs some support with meals, lunches. Again, she'll pay for ingredients, and some help in the garden. Someone needs a proofreader, panel beater, sewer. Okay, some computer support, and so on. Okay. So that was just to show you our process. So that's how we join. Fill out the form, then we'll have your details. We contact you, you attend a session. We have a $5 New Zealand dollar fee for joining, or $10 if you're in full-time work. You can choose $5 or $10. That's a one-off fee. That just helps us with some of our costs. So that's it really. And then once you're in, you create your profile, you put up offers, you put up requests, or you just look at the other ones and respond to those, and that's how it works. Now, as I said before, our slogan in Mid-Canterbury Time Bank is connect, contribute and belong. So we do other things apart from the exchanges to make that happen. So we have social gatherings, and we run social events like quiz nights, like parties. What else do we do? Big swaps, where we swap things we don't need anymore. We have camps. So we do all kinds of social events to promote the connection. And then we also run something called the Learning Exchange. Mari, do you want to chat a bit about just give a few examples about the Learning Exchange?
Yeah. So not every time bank has a Learning Exchange. But Kate being Energizer Bunny and Jen helping to goad her on the way, hi Jen, decided that we'd start both at the same time. We'd have a learning exchange and a time bank. So sometimes someone offers a skill that really does work in more of a class setting, or for at least a couple of different people at the same time. Likes of Tony there has been doing scrapbooking for absolutely donkey's years. And so she offered a learning exchange for scrapbooking. Unfortunately, the weather packed in, so I was the only one who turned up, but it meant that I could actually create my 21st birthday present for my son, the first one of the boys to turn 21. So it was really good. Instead of just like, a photo album, I could actually create a really special memoir for him of his first 21 years, because I was spending a couple of hours with Tony. And everything she had there would have been good for teaching 6 different people. We've had everything from scrapbooking through to edible garden tours, backyard teas, what we call it, edible weeds and backyard teas, learning how to use what you'd normally throw out or pull out of your garden. We've had blanket making, bread making, kombucha, te reo Māori, because Kate's a te reo teacher. We've had an Antarctica presentation. We've had several guided tours of the universe, which are awesome. There's at the local college, we've got an observatory. So if it's a good night, you get to go and have a look through there after you have the presentation Alistair has been putting together for you. It's a different Alistair, not this one. We've had, I made a bit of a list. We've had 3D printing technology. That was another out of the box one. We have technical help. So we have people of all different ages in the time bank, and not all of us are as savvy with the new technological languages. So we have people who will show you how to use your phone, and that works really well in a learning exchange, because somebody else might ask the question that you don't think you should ask, because a lot of us still believe there's such a thing as a stupid question. Yes, yeah, our teddy bear making. Thank you, Tony. Tony and I went out to a lady who's been making teddy bears and traveling around the world to exhibitions and things with teddy bears. And so we got to sit at her place and for 2 weekends in a row and make by hand our own little teddies. Mine is in my window for the teddy bear hunt around Ashburton at the moment. He's a little conductor teddy. He's got his little baton. Jen did one on alternate currencies and circular economies that I got sick, so I couldn't get to. We've had zero waste, lots of zero waste talks and workshops. What else is there? We did quite a bit on making stuff from scratch. So we did preserving food, so pickling and dehydrating and freezing and all that kind of thing.
That's great, Mary. Thank you. Yeah. I think that's given us a good
a lot.
glimpse of some of the things we've done.
Funeral planning. That was another good one.
Oh yes, we had one on death and dying, which was very popular, and then we did one on funeral planning. And we often have panel discussions. So we've had a panel discussion about money, a panel discussion about retirement, a panel discussion about spirituality, where we had Muslim, Mormon, Christian, Catholic and Pentecostal Christian, so different people of different faiths sharing about their spiritual lives. So all kinds of things, which is great. One more thing I'll say before we take some more questions, and that is that not only are individuals members of time banks, but organisations and businesses can also be members. We have a couple of businesses as members, and also organisations. Because we're about connecting, we want to connect not just people together, but also all these great things that are happening in our community. So our art gallery, our social services, our camp, and just as an example of how it works, we have an organisation that's joined, and they provide driver licensing training for migrant women who are isolated on farms. So they're rural and they can't drive. So they run training, and that's their program. And then what they need is drivers who will sit in the front seat with that woman while she practices her driving. So, when she's got her, for New Zealanders, when she's got her restricted license, that she needs to get so many hours of driving in and practice. When she's got her learners. Anyway, there are a number of time bankers who volunteer and are the driver are the assistant sitting in the front seat with the driver. And Tony, do you do that? Anyone on the call, one of those helpers? No, there are a number of people in the time bank who are those assistants, and so they earn time credits for the hours that they volunteer. But they also build a friendship with the woman who's sitting in the front seat driving. So that woman has now also got a connection, even though they're not time bankers. They've now got connections with some local people. So that's great. So that's just an example of how an organisation can work. Okay, we've got about 15 minutes left. Does anyone have any questions for Mari, Alistair, myself, or even Edgar, as well as the founder of Time Banking? Someone may have a question for him.
I'm just, because all our family is up north, or Shazzy's side of the family is up north. Her mum and her sisters and our favourite little niece that tends to look after us. But we can't use them as referees, can we? Because they're immediate family.
I think if you have one of your referees as a family member, like your niece, that's fine. And if one of them is one of your referees, could be maybe somebody else. Yeah.
Okay, so on the registration form, do Shazzy and I have to do one separate each?
Yes,
Yes.
please.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Do too. If you both want to join, you can just both fill it out, both come to the session, and then you'll have your own profiles with your own skills and offers and requests and things like that.
But you can both use the same referees, the same people.
Yes.
I've had that for husband and wife plenty of times.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool, 'cause
that's
I was
fine.
gonna use Mike and Hannah if we could.
That would be great if you're keen to join, Wes. We'd love to have you. We really enjoy getting new members and getting people involved, and especially when you're new to the community, it's a great way to get involved and get to know people. So
I've been a bit lonely sometimes back here in this, you know,
yeah,
with many mates out there.
yeah. The Time Bank's a great way to find new friends, and I think probably every Time Bank member on this call can attest to the fact they found new friends through the Time Bank. So, and I would like to say I found friends of all ages too. So I'm 42, but I found friends, you know, older women who I've become friends with, which I've really enjoyed. So it's really nice.
Check in.
Okay, I just have a question for Edgar. Thinking about this this post-COVID world, or this current world that we're living in, how do you see, what do you see as Time Bank's strengths in this situation, in this world at the moment?
We have some doctors who have actually, when they prescribe a regimen for healing and recovery, include participation in the local time bank, because we know that there's not enough money to pay all the doctors, all the nurses, but once you're over the most critical piece, you're still, there's still a whole pathway. And I've often, when I was actually in New Zealand, I promoted the idea of, could we create a form of long-term care insurance where you would pay a couple of time credits a month and know that if you or your family needed help, that there would be a pool of helpers who also had that insurance. So in effect, we can extend the formal medical care. And I see the need to build a system of care that deals with things that doctors and nurses feel are beneath them, because you don't need a certificate to reduce social isolation. I'm now writing a piece on social isolation because we're becoming aware of how much we've let money, in effect, define our networks and define who we are and define what we can do and what we can be. And aside, I would love to see if there was a time bank origami class, because I would really love to learn some. As a child, I learned how to make a bird, but I would love to be able to make other things with origami. And I guess the other thing is, I believe, and this is probably heretical, but I believe that we could teach law. I believe that we could create a whole legal system where people actually knew the law, because we actually do know the law. Even little children know that you hurt me, you scared me, you promised me, why didn't you live up to the promise? That we all know and don't realize we know legal concepts. And I think we could spread the rule of law and spread the respect of the principles of torts and contracts and basic human rights, and that we could credential people as legal counselors. Some of that feeds into the death and dying, and how you create powers of attorney to take care of you when you've lost that ability. But I really think that the expansion of the rule of law for little children would help build a society that honors basic human rights. And I also think that there's a whole other field called ecology, which is how we live on this planet and how we preserve the planet. So I think that the notion of a lifetime of learning and the conferring of certificates of competency and the discussion, informed discussion of issues that are coming up in politics, where most of us are ignorant and we just go along with it. I think a course in making democracy work and respecting the rights of people and dealing with what we know is the increasing inequality that we see on this planet, and the notion that we're never going to do away with the inequality, but we can certainly bring up the level of a fundamental right to live and fulfill yourself and to earn by contributing to others. I think we could expand an international human rights campaign. So I'm talking on and on, but I just think that when you think of how miraculous it is that out of a bunch of nuclei coming together, that you and I are talking and understanding each other and sharing, I think human beings are miracles, that we can do what we can do, but we know so much and we can share so much. I know in some communities, women earn time credits by teaching other women how to do hair and how to do nails, and that's important. I would like to be able to teach law. That's what I do for a profession, but I don't think that that anything on teaching can't be comprehended by children in elementary school or high school. And I think that so I think they're useful. I think there are things about health and healthcare that we need to know. I think there are things about what it's going to take to protect the planet and enable it to sustain itself, and how we're going to deal with global warming and those issues. So I think that I think the notion of a lifelong learning career and a time bank, in effect, a time bank school of learning as a lifelong role would be a very exciting thing, and I think it would preserve our collective wisdom. I also think that what you're doing around death and dying and the legacy that people leave in terms of their memories, what they learned, what they encountered, the stuff that you're talking about, Wes, the journey that you've been on, I think those are very important to give hope and to give a sense of meaning and to inject meaning in every moment of life. And I just think that we have the ability to share what we've learned, and that's a gift, and it makes us feel, I think we all, at sooner or later, have to answer the question for ourselves, why are we here? And I think time banking, we're here to be all that we can be for others, and to leave a legacy that leaves the world somehow a little bit better for our having been here, with a little bit more understanding and a little bit more sharing. And so I think that particularly around learning and teaching, that that we haven't only begun to appreciate the implications of time banking, just to share what we've learned and what we know, and also what we like to learn. There are things that there's languages, there's skills, all manner of things, and we're a species that that evolves because we learn from each other. And I think the mind is miraculous. I mean,
Thank you.
I learned at one point reading that we have more synaptic connections in our heads than there are stars in the universe. That's pretty impressive. Isn't it?
It is. Edgar, thank you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Our Time Bank is particularly interested in developing connections within the health sector. And I guess we are quite well on the way with our learning exchange to the sharing of knowledge and learning. That seems to have been taken up quite well, and but we are interested in pursuing more, I guess, getting the message out there, like you say, that so that doctors know that they can prescribe time banking, that as a part of treatment or whatever. Do you have any suggestions for how that might go about, or how that's happened in your experience?
Well, you will
Just
have,
one moment, Wes.
Hmm.
Way to go.
You will have professors who would love to teach a course. You did have professors at the university who taught courses for time credits. I think doctors would give lessons in healing. I think you have medicine men who know traditions. I think if if your time bank said, we are going to sponsor the development of a whole array of learning courses, and then there are principles of learning that says there's one thing to convey information, but it's only when the learner also participates that you get learning and sharing. So there are principles of learning that we could teach. So you could start off by developing a course in how to set up a learning dynamic, so that everybody who said, I'm willing to teach, we've all had very boring teachers. We've all had teachers we just sat through. And so a course in teaching us how to set up a learning course might be a very fundamental change in people's feeling that they had something to offer. Because most of us feel we don't have anything to offer at some point, but the notion that we all do. And so if you got together some professors who thought about the learning process and said, we will share with you how to set up a course where the learner participates, where the learner learns, where the learner gets a sense of being able to do something for others that they couldn't have done before, would be a very powerful process if we could set that in motion.
Thank you, Edgar. We just had a question from Tony on the chat, which I'll just respond to, and that is that in New Zealand, unfortunately, we are limited in sharing our professional skills because of the tax department regulations around time banking.
So we're hoping to get changed one day.
We are hoping to get changed, but for now, that does present some limitations.
I think things will change now that we've been through this monumental learning curve.
I hope so.
And I think money, I get a distinct impression that money is going to be much less of a god to a lot of people. I know obviously huge businessmen are obviously still ruled by it, but I think making money and stuff like that is becoming, it's to some people it's like, well, you can't live on money. I think having been so close to this virus that could have wiped us all out, I think it's making people think quite seriously about how they use their time or all the skills even. I know that sounds a bit back to front, but I think we will see things in a whole different light from now on.
I think
particularly so. I'll just take. Oh, sorry. I'll just take Wes's. Wes had his hand up before. So, did you want to say something now, Wes?
Yeah. My career life, when I had it, I was actually a registered staff nurse, and I specialised in Alzheimer's and dementia. So I'm able to offer help for those residents in the community that are having trouble and helping their families to understand what's happening with their loved one at that time.
Well, that's a great skill and background to have. Yeah, thank you. Fantastic.
Quite happy to help there.
Cool.
Edgar's suggesting, is there a way that we can have those as learning exchanges rather than have someone in a time offer them and then get around? Yeah, so I think that's how we get around the issue here of not being able to do it if, not being able to offer the time bank if it's your current profession.
Like Adam with the Kiwi Saving.
Yes, yeah. And through the learning exchange, we are able to access people's professional skills, and so yeah, that doesn't need to be a limitation in terms of them teaching something that they might do for a job.
If you had some lawyers look at those prohibitions, there is no prohibition that I know of that a lawyer can't figure a way around.
and we have a willing lawyer to take it on. Not here in Mid-Canterbury, but in Dunedin, I believe there is a lawyer who's interested in looking at it or is looking at it. So that's good news. Has anyone else got a question? Oh, it's 8 o'clock, so if you need to leave, this is the official time.
I would just like to say thank you for allowing me to be a part of this tonight.
Oh, you're most welcome, Wes.
Thank you.
Has Eric got any questions? He's been very quiet there all along.
Who?
Eric.
Yeah. Where is he?
Unmuting. I'm busy unmuting.
Oh, there he is. He was sleeping.
I don't have any questions now. I've learned a lot just by seeing how things are, different things in different countries. I'd like to know more about the legal limitation for professions. That's something that I found interesting, but I know each country has its own rules and regulations about things like that.
Apparently, we're pretty much the only country in the world that does have that limitation. Basically, I think it's because they lump us in with green dollars as an alternate currency. So that's the simple thing, that just trying to educate them to realize that it's not that at all, that none of us are actually trying to evade tax in any way. And I think it was Kate or Jen found out in the UK, in actual fact, that the equivalent of our work and income for New Zealand, so the government department that supports people who aren't in jobs and they get benefits and that kind of thing, in the UK, they actually promote getting people into the time bank while they're in that situation, whereas in New Zealand, it's considered work in a way.
In New Zealand, they will punish beneficiaries for being involved in the time bank, as in deduct their pay, which is just quite wrong. But yes, so there are two issues. One is the one with the unemployed or people on a benefit, potentially having their benefit affected if they are doing regular work in the time bank. But we're working with some MPs and trying to get that changed. And our local Minister of Parliament, Member of Parliament, is very sympathetic to our view and doesn't understand why it should be so. But that was just before COVID-19, so it's probably not the main thing they're talking about at the moment in the government. But hopefully we can get that rule changed. The other one is the fact, the guideline from the Inland Revenue Department is that if you are an accountant and that is your main source of income, then you cannot offer that skill in the time bank and do it for time credits. That's the guideline. So whatever your main source of income is, you cannot offer that skill that you do, that job, in the time bank.
Living allowance, I can't share what I know with Alzheimer's and dementia.
Yes, you can.
Longer work in that field. Yeah.
And because it also wouldn't be a regular thing, Wes, it's not like you're going to give lessons every week. You would just if somebody had a need, you would meet that need.
Well, I think that one thing the Time Bank did in Washington, D.C., where schools were a method of disciplining kids by suspension and expulsion, we created something that you could create called a Citizens Board of Inquiry to look at. And the Citizens Board of Inquiry held hearings. Partly the hearings dealt with the present practices and the consequences of suspending a kid and excluding a kid, and then the alternatives that had been developed and funded by foundations and governments all over the country, and what the alternatives were. And in effect, and then we had other people testifying about who was suspended and who was expelled for a given act, and it turned out to be children of color who disproportionately were subjected to those. And so in effect, we were using the Board of Inquiry to get officials to understand that these are practices that are part of a tradition or part of a practice that perpetuates discrimination. And so the school system changed the rules, and the school system then set up a Citizens Board of Inquiry to receive complaints and to receive information about whether those practices went way down. So you might, on anything that you're concerned about, one, you need to know what's going on, and what individuals can learn about is one thing. What a collective group that calls itself a citizens board of inquiry. They can't stop citizens from asking questions. That's a basic right. And so if you set yourself up as we are trying to find out what's happening, what's wrong with what's happening, what are the alternatives that we need to know about, and then you make that report to the government and you ask the government, here are the ideas, here are the possibilities, can you authorize them? And the government officials don't like to be charged with imposing stupidity, and perpetuating stupidity is not one of their favorite claims. They may do that, but it's not necessarily something that they want to brag about or be seen doing. So I'm suggesting that you could be part of a learning process to deal with issues that you think are important.
Thank you. Now, I am aware that it is after 8, and we did say this call was going until 8 o'clock. So if anyone needs to leave the meeting, feel free to do so. I'm going to stay on the line for another 10 minutes. If anybody wants to ask anyone else who's still on the line for another 10 minutes, any questions, feel free. Feel free to stay on and listen in if you like. But if you need to go, thank you very much for joining us, everybody.
Tony, it was a pleasure to hear from you too.
Yes.
And we'll look forward to hearing from you. Very cute dog. We'll look forward to hearing from you, Wes, when we get your application form and your wife's.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Absolutely. I've got to put Glitter down now.
Okay. Jen, Edgar, I'm not sure if you've met Jen before. She's on the call as well tonight, and she's just completed a master's in to do with time banking. And I don't know if you have any.
Well, it would be wonderful to begin to put together a collection of theses that people have written on time banking and articles, because it's still, after all these years, so few people know about it. And I think that if we began to create an international collection of studies, that would be powerful. And professors are always looking for things that they can teach and classes they can offer. And colleges and universities are more and more wondering about what's the future of work and what's the future of their role. And are we all useless now that we have, as you see, artificial intelligence and robots and automation saying, we don't need you anymore for things that used to define work. And I think we need that collective, I think collective studies would give us more clout in asking for the funding necessary to support the infrastructure and to expand an infrastructure that's both a learning infrastructure and a service infrastructure.
Thank you. Jen, did you have anything you wanted to say or any questions at all?
Not specifically, just I did meet you in Christchurch and Littleton when you came, Edgar, for the 10th anniversary of Littleton's Time Bank, and it was quite an honour to meet you then, and it's quite an honour to be listening to you and seeing you again.
It's so good to see that, to hear that.
Yeah, so I had been involved with time banking for a decade or more, and very interested in the health aspect of it. So that's kind of what I've just finished my thesis about. There's at least 2 other theses from New Zealand. They're both doctoral theses, talking about time banking. So yeah, having a collection of all of them would be fantastic.
Well, please, you have my email address, Kate or Jen, the Yes We Can
Yes.
at AOL.com. I would love to read those theses, because there's a cumulative body of knowledge to be gained from reading them, and we need to share really an informed sense of its potential, because I think it's particularly in an era of immigration, of xenophobia, of fear, the notion that there's a cumulative body of wisdom that we're developing can be very powerful.
On that note, Edgar, we've had members of the Time Bank from various backgrounds, and some of our white New Zealand European members have said that through their involvement in the Time Bank, they've met people of, sort of for the first time really, of other cultures, and got to know them, and in particular some of the Muslim members of the Time Bank, and have found that really interesting experience and positive. So that's great that we can be, in these little ways breaking down some of those barriers, I guess, that, or prejudices that people may have through fear.
I think we're all seeing now the power of media, of newspapers and of radio broadcasts, and to the extent that we can utilize the time banking to make use of media to train people to collect their stories, to share their stories, and to collectively use both old-fashioned media and digital media, we can become a voice for those who don't have a voice, and we can speak to things that otherwise a politician may feel that they're doing something risky by taking a position around equality and around justice and around environment, and I think that we could be reporters are very gutsy people. They collect facts, and we need to be almost a research force for reporters who will and can be a resource if they want to take on a research study about whether programs are working, about whether the health system is providing the care that it could, or whether there are new kinds of ways in which the health system could do something, new kinds of ways in which the educational system could be improved. We can be the de facto research resource for media.
Jen,
I will get you into more trouble than you knew. Yes.
I just thought maybe one of you might want to say something to Edgar, because he touched on media, the digital storytellers that we did last year, and how much we learned about the power of visual stories. Jen or Al?
Yes, we were really, really lucky to be able to get funding to have two wonderful young people come and teach us all about how to make our own movie, essentially, and how to promote the Time Bank through doing so, and other groups. And yeah, it's exactly as you said, that promotion of, and it's all at our own fingertips these days, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, whatever you want. We've all got lots of followers and friends, whereas back in the day you had to get it into the newspaper or get it onto the radio. There's still means, but a lot of people pass these other things, and yeah, it's been fantastic.
And the good thing about that is we have these great stories, like you heard from Alistair, just sharing a little bit about his own story, and how his life had been changed, firstly for the worse with the tumour and resulting illnesses, but then for an improvement, a better, through involvement in the Time Bank, and the way that the Time Bank has worked in his life, and how he's been able to contribute and also receive and get to know people. All that whole story, his story is a great one that we can tell, and we have many other stories of members whose lives have been impacted, and if we can tell their stories, I think people can't argue against a story. They can't argue against a person's experience, and that's really powerful. Yeah.
Like my joining of the Time Bank was completely different from Al. Mine was because the only thing we have in common was that we were both new to Ashburton. My family and I had moved to a small town in the North Island about 11 years earlier, and the difference in that experience to moving to Ashburton and within a short time finding out about the Time Bank and how many more people I got connected in and knitted into the community with purely through the Time Bank, that I found out about through Al and a garden working bee. So it's chalk and cheese, the difference in the experience. Whereas in the other one, my husband owned his own business, so he met people through that. Eventually, when our children were old enough, I started working again, and so I met people through that. But it was only at work. They never came to our house. There was quite a lot of you're new, but in Ashburton, through the TimeBank, because I've met people and they're all in their own little groups. There's people in choirs, there's people in sports groups, there's people in bridge, there's people in cultural groups or church groups, and TimeBank's like this massive Venn diagram where they all meet, and we just get to know all the best bits of everybody. I get the joy, Alistair and I have got quite a few joys of ringing referees, and going by these referees, we don't know how we always get the most amazing person that this person has ever met. Every single one of our people, their friends think they are the most amazing person. So somehow we manage to attract all these wonderful, wonderful people who've all got this collaborative spirit in common. And it's just, yeah, I mean, I know at least 181 people in Ashburton. I've only been here coming up 5 years. Whereas I was 11 years in the other place, and you could probably count on two hands how many people I actually knew that when I walked down the street, they'd remember my name. So
that's wonderful. I think that young people, if they were assigned to interview and tell the story of their grandparents, could create a whole new tradition of learning and appreciation. If they were taught how to do that and how to package it and how to present it, both as a gift but also as the history of their family that otherwise is lost. And I just think that particularly around learning and sharing, we have an economy, we have two economies. We have one that money defines and assigns price based upon scarcity. And then we have an economy based on relationships and based on interconnection. And we are going to see emerge a whole new economic theory about what it takes to create a healthy economy and how we define a healthy economy. And we will begin to see, if we collaborate with folks at the universities, the notion of what a healthy economy is. There are already movements in academia to think about that, and attempts to actually create an economy based on something called happiness. And I think that we can provide ways in which you can't build anything, I felt when I started, if it doesn't generate numbers. And TimeBanking automatically generates the numbers that you need to get respect for your insights and your ideas. And I just think that if we put together study groups, if we put together alliances to say, let's take this on as a project. And then if there's cumulative knowledge, universities have an obligation to make that accessible and available, and to give and to award academic credits for that. And that doesn't and to give forms of recognition. I think if the law, as you're dealing with now in New Zealand, precludes the development and sharing of knowledge, that's a subject that deserves some really high-level scrutiny and attention, and that a group of time bankers could put together a commission that studied how they promote knowledge without the negative consequences that came from the use of dollars, the commercialization of knowledge. And so we need grounded brainstorming about things that are well-intentioned but that are in fact can be very destructive.
And I think one of the positive things that has come out here in New Zealand from the lockdown has been, this is just one example, but there's something called Aotearoa, that's the Māori word for New Zealand, Aotearoa Town Hall. and it's been every Monday night where there's someone that's organised a panel of people to speak about a topic. So they've had Kate Raworth, the British writer who's written the book about donut economics. You may be familiar with, and if you're not, it's a wonderful book.
Can you send me that as an email, because I didn't catch it, but I'd love to follow up on it.
Sure, I will send you. Are you on Facebook?
To the best of my knowledge, so I don't know how to use it, but I do.
Well, I will send you both the name of the book, but also the name of. I will also send you the links to the discussion, the town hall. Basically, it's a panel of experts. So we had a couple in the UK and some New Zealand thinkers. It's very much tied to Māori thinking. A lot of Māori panelists sharing from their perspectives about the economy and how things are. And a wonderful economist who has well-being at the centre of his thinking, and really great, well, in my opinion, great thoughts about the economics. He's involved in the government, panels and things. So, his name's Ganesh Nana. Anyway, this panel was fascinating, and this week's one was about health. So various people talking about health and disability in relation to COVID-19, and but it's great to see that it's not just happening in universities, but they're kind of taking it to the town hall, so to speak, on Zoom and Facebook Lives, where these discussions are happening and people are thinking and sharing ideas. So that's great that it's happening, not so much in time banks necessarily, but in general at the moment. Tony, did you?
Yeah, I'm just talking about, I took part in a webinar with the NZEI, that's basically like the Teachers Union, about how to tackle things in the next few weeks. And I think there's a lot of stuff coming from the top that is saying we're getting away from things that like just assessment and teaching the curriculum. But another thing, and you're going to correct my pronunciation, Kate, I know, but what we're embracing, certainly in our school, and it's a new thing in the curriculum, is something called Putatara. Have I got that right? Where it's actually going back into history and looking at the roots of New Zealand culture and history. And certainly with our little ones, we're actually saying interview your grandparents, or if they're lucky enough, great grandparents, because once those people have gone, all that knowledge and I just want to know, skills, knowledge, the whole thing that is very hands-on. And I've been trying to do a little bit of that in a distance form with my kids, and it's not the same when you can't talk to them face to face. But I think we're going to be looking mainly in the next few weeks at people's well-being and listening to kids rather than teaching them, listening to how the last 6 to 8 weeks have impacted on their mental state, their well-being. I mean, some kids will have had a horrendous time. A couple of our staff members are married to police officers, and we check in every week as a staff, and the incident of domestic violence has been so high in New Zealand since the lockdown. And children obviously get the brunt of that, and then they think that's how you have to behave. So I think there's quite a lot of stuff that is going to happen, and we will change our whole perspective. So we're no longer, I think, going to just be teaching kids to learn hollow skills or whatever. We're going to be working much more with them about what they actually want from their education. And I think it's a very scary time, but I think it's a very, very, very brilliant opportunity that we've never had this before. And I know I'm not I don't know about you, Kate, but I think there's a lot of teachers, and I'm included in it, who don't want to go back to the old system. We've actually enjoyed this way of teaching because we've been working much more one-to-one with kids and families. And I think we've all got to be brave enough now to stand up and say we don't want to go back to the old ways. I mean, it broke my heart today how many cars are out on the road and things like that. We can't just slip back. Be interesting to hear what everybody else has got to say on that.
Kate, isn't there a couple of Māori terms that talk about the different mentality around learning, like ACO, that the teacher is the learner and the learner is the teacher, that kind of thing?
That's true. There is one word in Māori which means teach, and it also means learn. the word ako, and I mean you can distinguish it by saying whakaako if to teach, but basically ako embodies this concept of teaching and learning.
And we are kai akos, which is
equal.
the food of the food
people
of
who
education,
teach,
food of knowledge.
Thinking about kids, those kids at that age today, it's possibly their great grandparents, but their great grandparents saw a lot of difficult times, and like you say, if they can get from those people, how they got through those times, through the Great Depression, the wars, etc. I mean, that's what we're going to have to rely on,
But you don't even have to go back that far, because I again took a part in a really beautiful webinar with a guy called Webley Ings, who is a professor of education, and he spoke to his mother about what happened in the my brain's just gone. When polio here, wasn't it? And she said that schools all sent stuff out for you to do, and he said, "Oh, did you do it, Mum?" And he went, "No, we didn't do any of it. But I learnt to bottle fruit. I learnt to preserve. I learnt to drive the tractor. I learnt to ride a horse." And all that I used with you guys when, she had about 5 kids as well, and she had all these skills.
Practical
And
skills.
it's valuing practical skills.
Yeah.
And things like cooking. I mean, the number of people who bake their own bread, it's not just me and Andy, it's loads of people who's doing it, because you've got time, and life is slowed right down, and you have time to prove bread, and you have time to, I think we've lost so much connection with our roots, and I think most of that starts through food. Oh, you're going to say that's my son's birthday cake for tomorrow. It's because he's 17 tomorrow, and we have no birthday presents for him because everything's on lockdown, but he asked to have a brioche bun, so he's got that. But I think my concern with society generally, and it sounds very vague and very naive, but is our lack of connection with food. And I think if we learn again to make our own food, sit around a table and talk, or
grow
not,
your own food,
I think that is the fundamental sort of keystone of our existence. And I think we've lost that since, takeaways and fast food, and
really it's been
everybody else taking the food for you. And I think we need to get right the way back. I think if we miss that opportunity, then we really deserve, in a way, to have this happen to us again. I think we need to get so much more connected to our roots. Really.
Thanks for that, Tony. And I think in the Time Bank, it's lovely that we've got people who are sharing those skills of teaching people how to preserve, teaching people how to make sourdough and bread, and we've run some learning exchanges on some of those to bring it back. And I think you're right, there'll be a bigger interest in it as well now, having had this experience. Well, it's 4:30 in the morning, and I think we better let Edgar and Eric go back to bed. And is there any last thoughts either of you wanted to share before I end the call?
Just thank you, Edgar. Thank you so much. Do you mind if I take a photo of this group? Is that okay?
Of course.
Thank you. You're okay with that, Eric?
Mari, did you manage to before?
Yeah, Al, you've got the same laptop as me. On the top line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 buttons in from the right. You don't need to do it like that. Just press print screen.
8 buttons in from the
right, including the power button. There's print screen.
But Mari did also take one before, I think, on the sly.
And then you open up, in your search bar, you open up Paint, and you just Control V, copy that's there, and so you've got it.
It's okay. He's going to use yours, Mari.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking that.
I once
take a photo.
Where you go, Edgar? Sorry.
I once wrote a credo for time banking, and I don't know whether that's found its way to New Zealand.
You what, sorry?
He wrote a credo.
A credo for, and I can read you the last lines and send you the whole thing, but let me just share this.
Please.
There are domains which are above market, beyond price. Family, loved ones, justice, democracy, our planet, all that is holy, not for sale at market price, at any price. 1 hour, our piece of eternity. Fleeting, but nonetheless precious, sacred, eternal. That is what time banking means, declares, affirms, and reaffirms. We are and we will not be diminished. Let it be.
Let it be.
Wanted to share how important this 2 hours have been now. Oh, wow.
Thank you very much.
Very precious, very precious.
Absolutely.
For me.
How did you even hear that this was happening, Edgar?
I got an email from I must be on some mailing list that you all have. I got an email and I wrote back saying I'd like to connect, and they told me that this is when it was going to be, and then I had to learn how to figure out how to get the Zoom system going, and when I thought and I was so thrilled when all of a sudden your images came up on the screen, and I thought I did it. I actually did something.
Well, especially at that hour of the morning. That's impressive. I must say, when I saw that you'd registered for the Q&A, I was like, what? Edgar Khan? It was quite a surprise.
Well, I think it was your email back that told me that this is when it would be, but it didn't tell me where to go, how to get there.
Oh, that's because you'd already registered.
I didn't know I had registered.
Well, I'm pleased I'm very pleased that you joined us tonight. It was a real privilege for us to meet with you and to hear from you. And we've recorded the session, so we have your words recorded, and I've made some notes as well. And we're very thankful, and also for Eric, both of you, for your work that you do for TimeBanks USA and keeping things ticking. And we use your software, and we're really grateful for all the work you've done, which means that we can start a time bank and get it going and get excited and see people's lives changed. So thank you for all that you've done over the years and that you continue to do.
Eric, this will be sorry, Mary, this will be talked about for a hell of a long time. I think probably certainly most of our lives. Do you remember that time that Eric Khan rang up and we hello, it's like crazy.
I'm on another group on Facebook. I'm learning to write a book with this self-publishing group. And so I said on there that I was going to be on this. So if it's from all over the world, if they wanted to join and find out about it. One lady said, what's time banking? So I told her, and I asked her whereabouts she was, and she's in Ontario. And I said, hang on, I'll go and see if there's one near you. And it turned out there were two. One's not active, one is. Oh, I've got family there. It's about 3.5 hours from me, but I've got family. I'll find out about that. So somebody in Ontario now knows about time banking.
Very good. Okay, folks. I'm sure we could keep talking, but we will let you get back to your evenings and to your sleep.
It's beginning to sound very sleepy, so we need to let him go, don't we?
Well, you all have a gift that you don't know you have called conversational English. People, and you might think about offering that to a world of refugees and immigrants who desperately need the opportunity to acquire a capacity that you take for granted.
True.
100%.
I do.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Edgar. Thank you, Eric, for joining us from the other side of the world.
Thank you for inviting us in.
And good health to all.
Yes. And to all.
Yes, stay healthy.
Thanks, everybody. I'll end the call now.
Thank you. Thank you for running this, Kate. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining.
Bye-bye.
Bye.